Hi everybody, Bobby Ogilvy, Project Manager and Professional Coach. Today's question, what is the difference between B2C and B2B or even B2G selling? Okay, so the difference is the target market you're selling to. And so normally the terms they use, so B2C would be normal customer or consumer markets, everyday products that an individual can buy. The B2B, that's for businesses, right? There's some kind of business product or service you're selling. And B2G would be governmental, right? So something that would have to be a large government department, or if you think of any kind of sectors that are regulated, that the average person, so like the average agency can't just start doing space stuff or healthcare or things like that. There's regulations around that stuff, right? And even in B2B, you normally break that up into saying the SME market, which is, so in Canada we define, so small business is up to 50 people, medium is 50 to 500. I think in the US they call it up to 5,000, but anyway, whatever that band is, normally in my mind I would consider it under 500 because organizationally they have, very different attributes than, let's say, a 2,000 person organization, right? So in B2B, you probably break it up as SME market, small and medium enterprise, and then above that you would call large enterprise, and large enterprise markets tend to behave closer to B2G because they're these big organizations. They have in terms of gross numbers, they have a fair amount of money. They're not often doing, this is a classic OD problem. They're not, as much as they have resources, they're often not creating new value, new innovation. And so a lot of how they add value is by becoming more efficient, right? Finding efficiencies or leaning up processes or things like that. Anyway, just it means they behave in different ways. Anyway, so why would you target one or another of these markets? Well, if you have a product or service, by the nature of what it is, you're probably gonna know what your market is. It's very rarely like you could hit a whole bunch of these or all of these and just decide which one to sell to, right? If that is the case, great, and then that's part of your marketing strategy and what markets you want to hit first. Now, is it going to help you hit your later markets, and what's your overall growth strategy, and what is your competition doing? Good, but normally you're going to know what your product is, right? So if you're selling, I don't know, some kind of food product or something, that's probably B2C, right? An average person is going to go and buy your food product. You could start to think from a marketing standpoint, how can I start to get some of the B2B and, sell to companies? So for example, I'm thinking, I live in Atlantic, Canada, and I'm thinking of some bakers and things downtown, and they have their normal kind of store where they sell their stuff, and they have their weekend market they do, but they also have a few, I'm not sure if they're kiosks or they just come in at lunch hour, but particularly sell to businesses, right? So obviously they knew that there was this like lunchtime business crowd downtown they wanted to hit, right? And so they changed some of their logistics so that they could offer to that B2B crowd. Now, sorry, in that sense, it's still ultimately an individual buying it. So really it's B2C, and then it's an individual who just, I'll take a sandwich. I'll take whatever the lunchtime food they're selling is, right? I suppose in that sense, B2B would be more like they had an arrangement with the company, with that building, and, they did like a group catering order or something like that. But anyway, you get a sense how these are different, particularly with different, so obviously monthly like IT products that have a SaaS, software as a service business model. These are quite popular right now, and it's great too in the sense of they're easy to sign up for and start or stop. And from an investment and from also kind of just a managerial operation standpoint, having a clear MRR, monthly recurring revenue, is great, right? As opposed to having chunks of revenue in and then droughts of no revenue, right? It's a steady, consistent line. That stuff's awesome, right? So often for them, they have a bunch of, they may have some features now, a bunch of potential features they could develop, and depending on which market they're going after, am I going after the SME market or the large enterprise or the governmental market or some combination of those, they're changing what features they're developing to be able to go after those markets. So that is definitely a product market fit kind of issue in terms of how they're addressing their B2B or maybe B2G needs and demands, right? There's a whole other video we could talk about product market fit and differentiation, but in their use case, they really do have enough latitude that they can decide which market to go after. And I would say, so then of all these markets, B2C, the SME B2B, large enterprise B2B, and then B2G, Bobby, which is the best market to go after? Well, it depends on your product, but if it were up to me, the answer is always going to be the SME B2B market. Why? Because your average deal size is a lot bigger than B2C, but the main thing is they can buy faster and buy with a lot more agility, and there's a lot more of them than large enterprise or government, right? So you can penetrate that market faster, you can make more money faster, and there's just a lot more flexibility and choice in that market. The way large enterprise and the way governmental organizations operate is a lot slower and harder to sell to, and in that sense, it will fundamentally change your business model. So let me just throw this out for you, right? If you knew, let's say you're talking about a physical product, right? And you can currently sell it with a gross margin of 60%, and you want to move, I don't know, 2,000 units a year, right? So what if you had an opportunity that you could sell not 2,000 units per year, but you could sell 20,000 units per year, right? But you don't get a gross margin of 60%, you get a gross margin of 15%. Is that something that would appeal to you, right? And that's a business question, right? That fundamentally changes your business model. And so you can see how. So the good thing is, I mean, if you think about this from a business case standpoint, there might be a steadiness in saying, well, yeah, I got 20,000 units coming in, but now you're making so little off each unit that probably where you're going to start to put a lot of your focus is to say, well, geez, if we need to now bang out 10 times as many units, 20,000 units, we should look at our production and operations of how we produce these things to get that cost down as cheaply as possible, because we have a few of these really huge, like 20,000 unit customers, right? And that's totally different than someone in the B2B, in the SME B2B market who's like, yes, I have 50 or 200 of these, smaller unit customers, right? A lot more flexibility there. And in that way, I would say less risk in that it's spread out over a number of people. When you're dealing with large enterprise and governmental, think of how, one client or one individual has so much sway over you, right? Whether you do or don't get this contract, your company can live and die in that. Whereas if you have a big pool of a whole bunch of clients, well, it's just one in the mix, and you can handle that risk. So that is the difference between B2C, B2B, and B2G selling. I'm Bobby Ogilvy, Project Manager and Professional Coach. Talk to you soon.